Travis Bazzana is headed off to the World Baseball Classic, not before leaving a big impression on Guardians camp. And that leads us into debating how we rank our prospects and our Guardians prospect rankings for 2026.
Tanner Bobby of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, the Guardians are no longer undefeated in Cactus League play. It had to end sometime. But hey, there were still some good takeaways from that game. We're going to discuss that today on Locked On Guardians because that is what we do. We cover your Cleveland Guardians every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, from the majors, the minors, the draft, everything in between. And I am glad to be here. I'm Justin Lada, and one of your two co-hosts for the last 4 years and counting now. I've also spent 19 exciting years covering the Guardians farm system as a prospect writer and editor, where I met Jeff Ellis, my friend and co-host, several years ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Oh, all those fun years in AA. As you mentioned, I am Jeff Ellis, one of your two co-hosts here. I've been here since Locked On expanded into baseball 7, 8 years. It's so long, I don't remember exactly how many years ago it was now. Before that, I was a national writer at Scouting 24/7, focused on prospects in the draft. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. I want to give a big shout out to all of our everydayers and insiders. We got thank you to everyone who left iTunes reviews. We have so many of them. We are going to give you thanks at the end of the show so we can dive into the stories of the day today. But a big thank you to all of our everydayers, insiders, commenters, and people who never miss an episode.
Yeah, I think we got 5 reviews in the last 2 weeks, so we do definitely appreciate that as the season gets closer. So on today's show, we are going to later on get into debating our consensus Locked On Guardians prospect list for 2026 for the first time. Talk about who's in, who's out, where everybody fits in. Coming up in a little bit, we'll discuss how we evaluate prospects, what traits and metrics we both lean on the most, and our risk tolerance. I'm sure we'll have a good debate about how we go at the process. Figure we'd kind of show everybody how the sausage is made before we make the sausage or show you the sausage. Leading off today's show.
We're not showing any sausage. This is a family show, Justin.
Leading off today's show, what stood out from today's spring training action for the Guardians? And it was Travis Bazzana, who is heading over to Japan for the World Baseball Classic, and he did it with a bang, with a dinger. And that was an exciting home run. And we want to be careful. We always say, don't get into spring training results, all this other stuff. But, what I did on Saturday, if you didn't listen to it on Saturday before the Guardians kicked off their Cactus League slate, is I did a quick 10-minute primer on those 2 games, just the spring in general, and talked about what sort of signals you can try to look through the noise in spring training. And that's, at bat quality, who they're facing, just in general, how they fit in. And you want to be careful not to read too much into exit velocity because it could be impacted by the air out there in Arizona. But I'm going to allow myself to get excited over Travis Bazzana's 100 and almost 108 mile an hour home run off of a 90 mile an hour sinker from Henriquez from the Dodgers, who's got really good stuff. And I think the important thing to note too is 2 things we talked about off air, not to steal all your thunder, Jeff, but velocity was something that we didn't know much about Bazzana on because you just don't face 99 mile an hour sinkers in the Pac-12, which still existed back in Bazzana's time in college. And he turned around on that fastball. I don't care where it is. That was a good pitch that was coming back over the plate, and he was ready to be able to hit the ball that far to dead center like he did almost and hit that velocity. You have to be ready for it, and you have to make a good swing decision. Sometimes we talk about not making a bad swing decision, like chasing out of the zone or chasing pitches you can't do much with. Sometimes swing decisions also what pitches you need to be swinging at, and that is something we've debated about with Bazzana too. Is he swinging? Is he being aggressive enough at the right pitches? And that's the pitch you want him being ready for to hit. And man, the crack of that bat was fun to see off that pitch.
It's fun to hear. And I think
the crack, I heard it.
Yeah. I think in general he's had a really good handful of games because that's all it is. But we've seen him be aggressive. He had the walk with the bases loaded, but he swung in that at bat. His single today, it was a situation where with ABS and everything else, it's like he had to swing at a really hard to hit pitch and got a single off
Blowing in
that one.
cutter.
But yeah, if you don't know the pitcher for the Dodgers, Hernandez has had some health issues, but he's got some nasty stuff. Was not great in AAA, but was actually really good in the majors a year ago because of that nasty stuff and a small sample. But it's we kind of glossed over Nolan Jones' home run yesterday. Why? Because he was not really facing anyone you and I expect to ever see in the majors. This is a guy who's been in the majors who I think is going to stay in the majors. That's why that's exciting. I think it's same side of that coin is Valera having a nice at bat before that and having a hard hit off of Hernandez as well. So it's Bazzana's the story because he's the highest draft pick in franchise history. He is going to go to the biggest stage. He is a player who, due to injury a year ago, and because people didn't want, there is a sizable group of the fan base who just didn't want him. Who complained about having too many infielders, even though we currently still have a shortage of infielders in the minors and on this team because the infielders, but a lot of people are kind of out there weirdly waiting for him to fail so they can be like, aha, I knew. And it was just great to see kind of what we've expected, see him facing good competition, being healthy, and seeing this is a guy who has always worked his tail off and done everything he can to get better. So I'm sure after a very disappointing season, he had even more reason to really spend a lot of time working around the edges and getting better.
Yeah, I mean, he worked on his bat speed in the offseason a little bit, and he worked on his posture to be in better hitting positions and make better swing decisions. And again, it's not just, like I said, not chasing out of zone. It's also looking at the strike zone and being ready to hit pitches that are in your zone. And he did that in that fastball. And that's why I said I think the World Baseball Classic is going to be great for him. Like, I know there's always risk in playing those high intensity games early, but I think it's going to be good for him. He has to go into the Classic as a leader of the team on the biggest stage. And he's going to have to lead that team. I think that's going to be very good for him in the future. I think that could springboard him into a good year. I asked him that last week, and he agreed. He thinks that can be a great way to leapfrog into the year instead of starting slow. So definitely a reason to get excited there. He'll be out now for the next couple of weeks, or at least a week or two. I think everybody's heading over to Japan. At least that pool is, to get trained together. So I think that's the last we'll see of Bazzana until after the World Baseball Classic, which is like depending on how far Australia goes, which if you're wondering, I think they could make out of the first round, but it would be kind of unlikely. They're in the same pool as Japan and Korea, so it's going to be tough, but we'll see. A guy who didn't have a great day, Jeff, was Juan Brito. Now, luckily, you're not going to ask him to play third because there's this guy named Jose Ramirez over there. It's pretty good at it, but Juan Brito, he could not hide today. Like, he kept overthrowing balls. He kept making bad decisions. So third base clearly is not a good position for him. I don't know if he'd do that bad at second base. Like, he's made some okay plays at second so far. I think today was a particularly awful day. I don't think he's this bad at second base, but it made me start thinking. I was like, plus his bat quality has been so bad this spring. I was like, maybe he does need to play left field or DH. Like, it's a little scary. I can't believe there are people who have said, "Oh, he's a really good athlete and a solid defender." I don't buy any of those. I got to be honest. It's all bad.
Yeah, I don't understand those at all. And, it's always been my issue. It's like, if everything works out for him, your high-end outcome, I've said this repeatedly, is an Isaac Paredes type, which would be fantastic. I'd love it. Give me that every single day of the week. But that's the 90th percentile outcome. That's not the likely outcome. The problem is you got a guy whose bat is solid, but not spectacular. He is good, not great. And then he is just a butcher in the field. Like, he is it's a position he's not used to, but some of those throws were just like, or getting in front of the shortstop. Like, this is just
cutting
basic
off Angel Hanao. Yeah.
Like, he looked really, really bad. He was awful last spring, and that's why he didn't make this team out of camp. And he is well on his way to, getting another ticket to the minors to start the year.
Yep. Yeah, I have, the more and more I think about it, the at-bat quality just isn't good, and the defense isn't good. I don't see how he can make this team as much as, and honestly, he didn't hit lefties well last year as a right-handed hitter. So he doesn't even help right now in that respect. He's better as a left-handed hitter against righties, and that's not what this team needs right now. All right, there's a couple more names we need to mention from Tuesday's game against the Dodgers. It was a blowout, but there were some other things. We'll have some other camp updates as well. And anything else in life when it comes to ranking prospects. Process is what leads to good outcomes. So we're also going to tell you what our process, traits, and metrics we value when we rank prospects coming up next. Some people hear the words Buckeye Chuck or Punxsutawney Phil and they think spring. I think tax season, honestly, because it is almost spring, no matter what the woodchucks, beavers say, whatever they are, groundhogs. Tax season does not have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to hand things over, move on with your day, and hope for that early spring. With TurboTax full service, you can hand your taxes off and have it done for you by a local trusted expert, start to finish. No guesswork, no stressing. We have 1099s, we have W-2s, all kinds of stuff between real day jobs and freelance content stuff. So we need a local tax expert to do that hard work for us. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150. All in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. File by February 28th. That's this week. Take taxes off your plate. Get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Baseball is back, and time is running short for you to take advantage of the offer to join the Everydayer Club. If you have checked out every show of Locked On Guardians, every video, downloaded every episode, the Everydayer Club is for you. Check out ad-free episodes, get access to our group chat on Discord, which is a lot of fun. You can interact with us. You can interact with our hosts of the show and the network across Locked On. And until the end of this week, you can use promo code SPRING, and you can get a free month of the Everydayer Club at LockedOnGuardians.supercast.com. There's a link in the show notes wherever you're listening or watching to get that. All right, let's quickly run over the last couple of names from today's game. So we talked about Bazzana. We talked about Brito. You mentioned Valera. He's had some pretty good at-bats this spring, I will say. He's hitting the ball hard. There's been some strikeouts, but generally he kind of looks like the player we expect, so he could be interesting the way things are going. I think Ralphy Velazquez has had really good at-bats. He's hitting the ball hard. Hasn't faced like the best competition so far in spring, but he just looks like he fits. Like where you have a guy like Juan Brito who's been pressing and struggling. Ralphie has not had that issue. He looks like he belongs in his first major league camp. He did a nice play at first base today, so there's that. I thought Connor Brockton looked good. He threw a couple nice changeups. And Colin Holderman, not so much. The Guardians really need to figure things out with his sweeper, and he's got options. And the way he's going right now, I would not be surprised if he starts the year in Columbus. Andrew Walters is progressing to throwing batting practice. That hasn't happened yet, so he's still recovering from that lat injury, the surgery he had in the offseason. We'll probably talk more about that this week. And Peyton Pallette has yet to appear in a game because he's battling some shoulder fatigue, but he seems to be okay. They seem to think that he'll be throwing again here soon and ramp up to live game action. And then also expect Rhys Hoskins to play in a game by Friday or Saturday, maybe Sunday at the latest. So they think he'll be ready for his first at-bats as a Guardian by then. Jeff, any notes from the game you want to hit on, or do you want to talk about all the things we do that goes into prospect rankings?
The only other thing really is just it was a rough start out of the gate for Gavin. It's one start.
Yes.
We'll see where it goes. The important ththings were, at least when it was not an extended look, but it's like his velocity was maintaining, things like that. Like, we see rust. He's got to knock the rust off. That's all. Don't knee jerk too much based off of what occurred.
Yeah, you don't love when guys make their first start and have to be removed in the first inning and then come back out for the second to finish their work. That's never a great thing. The quality of his fastball kind of stunk. Like the IVB was bad. The shape was bad. He wasn't landing other pitches for strikes besides the cutter. So you would have liked to have seen things. He wasn't throwing first pitch strikes, but it's his first start. So we'll see how things go after that. But yeah, I'm not going to freak out over that, but it definitely could have gone better. All right, let's talk a little bit before we actually start ranking prospects and kind of going through that exercise. I thought it would be important for us to talk through like what goes into our rankings. What do we value? I did this on a solo show a while ago. Just talking about the things I value, but I know one of the things we probably differ on, we could start off with, is our risk tolerance. I used to be a guy who would rank players higher if I felt like they had a very safe profile or safe. Like I remember back in the day, I would have like Eric Haas really high because I was like, oh, I feel really confident about what Eric Haas is going to be, and I can safely project that, even though I don't think the ceiling is high. I think I've evolved over the years into more of a medium risk tolerance where I'm like balancing ceiling and floor. But I probably have a higher risk tolerance than you, I think, when it comes to guys with like big tools and the risk reward side of things. Am I right on that?
I see. Here's the thing. Like, honestly, like your phrasing on it is that's just not how I look at it. Like,
Okay.
At all. So for me, it's like I look at kind of more of a it's like a teaching approach. It's the whole kid approach, right? But I do that with scouting. So there are certain things that I know are going to really put players at a disadvantage, and that I guess maybe you could look at it that way, because it's like I tend to, like I'm looking for the positives, but there are certain things I'm like, okay, if you have this trait, you're automatically dropping. Like it's back when I was a kid in high school in the late 90s, we had what we called fatal errors. If you had a fatal error on your paper, you dropped a grade level. There are fatal errors for prospects that caused me to drop them lower or not have as much faith in them than others. And it's just because, what have we said? We started doing this, 17 years ago, scouting prospects. We have almost 20 years. And I was the person before that, like as a kid, when I was 8 or 9, I was cutting out the stats from the Beacon Journal for the minor leaguers. I've talked about on this very show that my first prospect crush, as it were, was this dude Colin, who kept like a ridiculously low ERA and a bunch of high strikeouts when he was in A-ball. I'm like, this Colin guy, they never write about him in the little minor league sections of the paper. Who is this? So I'm looking kind of more at specific traits, and it's like, yeah, I mean, a high ceiling guy is great. But like, if they have high ceiling and they have like 2 fatal errors, they're going to be lower for me. If they have things that are just like really hard to overcome, I'm more looking at what I have over again 20 years seen as like, okay, like when I started out talking about the evolution, it's like, man, I used to be the king of like, who cares about like height? Who cares about where they went to school? Who cares about, if you go back and look at my early boards, which you probably can't find anywhere, but if you did, if I post them, like I would be like, who cares about the Cape? It's a small sample. Like I have now, height matters. Now, Cape data matters. Like I have evolved and changed because of that experience, because of learning and knowing better. But yeah, I don't know. I'd be curious to see when we sit down to do it. It's like just how different we are in terms of like, I want to see what player we have the biggest gap on when the time comes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as like traits and data points go, like you said, size is important, right? Like, I think that's important for both pitchers and hitters to an extent, depending on, I know, but there's also a threshold. I know for pitchers, you will
and hitters
cut that off for too, and hitters. Yeah. Because the longer levers, but I think the most important things from a hitting standpoint for me are like, if you have a high chase rate, you're getting bumped down. Pitch recognition is a big thing. If you have an adjustable swing, when you evaluate hit tool, it can't just be contact. You have to make impact contact. I think positional value matters. I'm a big throwing arm guy. I think if you have a good arm, that helps you out. You can go a lot of places. Obviously, the Guardians like that, right? Like they're not necessarily focused on range right now. They'd rather have a big arm. I don't value speed that high. I will say, like some guys, you need it, but it's not like really high up on my board. And then I also look very heavily at platoon splits too. And then on the pitching side of things, like for me, like fastball shape, you have to have a quality fastball shape, and then you have to have a certain level of velo. Like if you throw below 94 on average, you're below league average at this point. So that's going to knock you down a couple pegs. Stuff is your, delivery repeatable, control command. I look at whiffs in the zone too. Like it's good if you can get guys to chase, but I think if you can miss bats in the zone, that's why I'm so high on Joey Cantillo this year. And I think we both, look at health history too as a big one, especially for pitchers. Like obviously it matters for Chase DeLauter too, but when you have like a Daniel Espino, those are really important pieces too.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it honestly a lot. Like, the great John Sickles did like a 30-year retrospective. I'm talking about my 20 years. He did 30 years of data. And it's like, bottom line, why do players fail? Why did players he rated highly not work out? And then, a few years ago, Alton, one of our, I don't know if Alton's in every day or not. Hopefully, if you're in there, comment and let me know. But like, he gave me this thing where one off season when I was a solo, it's like, go through and like, why did people fail for the Guardians? I went through every single top 100 prospect who had failed and kind of tracked the why of it. And you really come down to two simple reasons that most hitters and most pitchers fail. The first one is health issues. Like either they miss too much time, or after health, they're never quite the same guy, or, the consistent health. Or when we come back from break, I'll tell you what the other one is.
All right, we'll do that. And then we'll start talking through our list and having some debates about who makes it, who doesn't, and who's high and who's low. So stick around for that. You know what? Work is stressful enough as it is. Who doesn't get the Sunday scaries? Workplace chaos there's no place for that. Deadlines, inbox overflowing, all while you're trying to fill an open position. The pressure's on. You need the right hire, and that is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually hit what you're looking for with the skills, experience, and the right location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate comes across your post. And the minute we've been talking, companies like yours have made 27 hires according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates. Check all the boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Less stress, less time, more results. Cut through the chaos. That's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of Locked On Guardians, you get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support this show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Guardians. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Whether it's Cactus League play in spring training, the World Baseball Classic, Guardians news from camp, or as we the regular season, we want to make sure you are staying up to date with all the latest Locked On Guardians episodes, because we are here for you every day to talk Guardians baseball with you. So hit the bell on YouTube so you get notified of whenever videos go live, and auto download wherever you get podcasts so the show stays in your feed. Maybe you're traveling on an airplane somewhere coming up like I am, and you want to make sure you have the latest episode downloaded on your flight. So do that as well and stick with us wherever we go. All right, where do you want to start? Because
I got to give them the second reason everyone fails. So the other thing is, for hitters and for pitchers, it's zone control. For pitchers, it's an ability to stay in the zone, to walking too many hitters. Their stuff isn't good enough to get someone to swing outside the zone. And then for hitters, it's being a hacker. It's the chasing. And then I just, on top of everything else you mentioned, as they move up and I get to see more video or get more information, really for hitters, what it boils down to is, can they hit the ball hard? And, the ability to barrel in the zone, and are they pulling it? Like, as much as that used to be a thing, like, oh, he's just a pull hitter. Now everyone should be pulling it, because all the data shows that like the best outcomes are when you pull the ball in the air. So I'm kind of looking for, I sit there and I look for, again, I'm looking to make sure they don't strike out too much. And then I'm looking at things like their quality of contact, and I'm looking to see if they have more than one trait. Like, they have to have multiple ways to be successful.
Yeah, you do need multiple traits for sure. I mean, like I said, I don't value speed that much. Like, it's good for certain prospects.
It's a bonus.
It is a bonus for sure. Like, if you don't have like Ralphy Velazquez power or whatever, you need to have some speed, and that's why Bazzana ranks so highly, because he's got enough power, but he also runs well, and even though he might not have the defense, like, he's got multiple traits. Plus, he, like you said, he controls the zone. That's an important factor. So it really depends on how you balance out your profile as well. But I'm generally, I will say, less afraid to rank guys with that I used to be in terms of like boom or bust prospects a little bit higher, because I like the upside. I still try to balance that out a little bit, but like a long time ago, I probably would have put like, certain guys would have been a lot lower on my list just because of the the boom or bust risk, I would say. So I've kind of come around on that a little bit more, with the risk tolerance. But where do you want to start on the list? Because I will say the top 8 or 10, the top 15 or 20, I would say were mostly easy. The top 8 for sure were the easiest for me. And actually the top 7. And then after about 10 or 15, I was kind of like, okay, this is a little bit harder. Maybe I think we've said this before. I think once you get past the top 10 for this organization, I think you can slice it a lot of different ways who goes where. But is anybody, we're gonna do a consensus top 30 for the podcast. So we'll do that in the coming weeks. We'll break it down into chunks and talk about it. But we're just kind of debating where we stand on lists right now. So I think we can agree that Travis Bazzana is one. There's no debating that, right?
Yeah. No, for me, I thought there's kind of a top 4. And then I kind of got my next 9 pretty easily. And then 10 to, I would say, probably about 20, 21, maybe even 22 is kind of a similar range. And then 22 to about, and then like 22 down, it was all kind of similar for me at that point. That's kind of how I would tier it out for myself. But yeah, Bazzana's one. It wasn't exactly a hard choice. I know, again, people who dislike him, well, he walked, everything was buoyed by walks. It's like he was productive. Like bottom line, dude was productive.
And he was hurt. And all hurt and breaking up his season, and people were saying that was a bad year. I think we're starting to see the training he's put in is paying off. I don't think anybody else has Cal Steven as high as I do. I have him at 2.
I have him at 1 just to spite you. No, I'm kidding. I knew you. I guessed that a few weeks ago with Justin. He was so mad at me. He was so mad.
I didn't think you were gonna get that. Like I mean,
I made it. I did it as nonchalantly as I could. I'm like, well, you probably have him too. It was awesome.
I guess I tipped my hand a while ago on that. I don't remember doing that.
You were just a little too glowing. You were just really glowing with him. So I kind of sat down. I was like, okay, so that's where I think you're going. I really debated too heavily. I am not as high on Steven. That might be one of our bigger gaps. But not that he's super low, but he's 7 for me.
Wow, that's a 5 position gap. So
it is. And it's because the mix of like, so I trust the hitters a little bit more, and I like Steven's stuff, but like I still think there's a chance Doughty could have bigger upside because of, and I guess
no doubt.
Because he's so young to the position, his ability to throw pitches, and I think Messick is a little bit safer of a ceiling guy. So it's like, there's a good chance. There is a very good chance that Cal Steven ends up the best of that group, but I kind of put listen, they're all ranked in a row. It goes Messick, Doughty, and Cal Steven all in a row for me. But I still have Janau second.
I moved him down, believe it or not. I thought for sure he was number 2 for me for a long time, but I moved up Stefan and I moved up Ralphie, honestly. Like I need to see Hanau and how he handles AA pitching. I know I gave him a little bit of a what do you call that? A mulligan on last year because he was hurt, and it was his first time in AA, and he's young for the level, but I need to see it first. I put DeLauter back up at 4, honestly. Like I know the health thing.
He's 4 for me as well.
Okay, I'm surprised by that. I thought maybe he'd be a little lower because the health thing. But like I'm as confident as ever in DeLauter that he's gonna hit. It's just he's got to stay on the field. Like I think lower in the minors, I was like, all right, the swing is weird, and the swing is still weird, but you can't deny the results. Like if he's on the field, I think he's going to be a star. I really do.
If he had half the health issues, which is like, and that's just the thing.
By now,
he would have debuted, but it's like,
I guess, but yeah,
I debated him as high as 2 because again, I agree with you. I think that like the potential there is so high in spite of like the arm bar, and even if that does lead to platoons, and I'm gonna talk right now. The Yankees are going to be the king of platoons next year. Like it's just baseball. It's just that's part of the game. We'll wait and see with him. I'm not going to necessarily diagnose him as that right now.
Yeah,
but there are reasons to think it could happen. But it's like I don't doubt his ability to produce. But I also have no faith in his ability to stay healthy because again, like everyone else, it's like, okay, so it's 3 years. I haven't followed this kid since college. It's been I've had almost
Every
twice as
year.
long following him in these same issues. And it's scarier to me when it's not just one body part, but it's his entire body breaking down every year. But, I think he could work out. And the only reason Ralphie is at 3 is like, there's been a few little bits of up and downs, and it's positional. A lot of it's positional. Where Janelle gets the gap between shortstop and first base.
It's big.
Is big, and Janelle has a lot of really great data. He could end up being like a 50 everything to me, which at shortstop would make him a top 5 shortstop. There's also a realm where he's not even, he's more of a backup, but I'm still a believer in that overall profile.
Yeah, I think the upside for Velazquez, the hitting, has just because he was so young. I mean, Hanau had a very brief look at AA too, because he was hurt, but Ralphie had a brief look too. And even if we take out the Reading series, like we talked about yesterday, like he still had a better debut in AA than Hanau did. So that kind of settles it for me. And I think there's just a louder hit tool. And I know Hanau, I think he could run. I think he can play a great short. He's got a great arm. He's got the best non-Gabrilarius arm in the system. Yeah. So that's all valuable. I just need to see how the approach is going to fare against that pitching.
I don't want to overreact too much to that, because like mid-season he was in danger of slipping out of the top 10 to me, and like then he turned around. Ralphie, like he had a really slow start. He had some scuffling. Well, so I'm kind of.
That's a bit of the difference, is because I saw Ralphie in person. And I knew he was having a lot of bad luck in terms of BABIP early on. So,
well, he was, and I mean, there was also just other points where, like, I felt like every time I did watch one of the games, it's just like he never stood out. Like, he never had that impressive moment in the first half. It was a not great first half. He recovered. He did a lot of really good things. Honestly, like, I know if anyone asks, it's like I'd probably end up having, if Kafis was available, probably 9th on this list, maybe 10th. But that's the one outsider name I'll mention with us running out of time.
Yeah, I will say the hardest players for me to come up with a ranking for, like Cooper Ingle dropped for me. I'm probably lower on him than most of the outlets. I have him at 8.
That's where I
struggled. Okay, I struggled on Espino because I have him at 10.
11.
I'm a little bit nervous. I did drop Brito. I did this exercise before the game today, but I dropped Brito just thinking about things. I had a hard time with Lavalette. I had a hard time with Valera. I had a hard time with Rosario. I had a hard time with Curly. Like, those guys are all in my top 30 just because of the skill set in the system. But like, I had a hard time ranking those guys because I just don't know. I think the floor is not great. The ceilings are good. The floor is not great for those guys. That's why I had them a lot lower.
It's interesting how many people outside the org were super high on Rosario. And listen, he is the anti Ralphie. Like, he had the amazing first half and then fell off a cliff. Like, I had Rosario ahead of Ralphie at the mid-season point. And then, Rosario, it wasn't just the promotions. I mean, he was the rare hitter who looked terrible in the AFL. He couldn't catch up to anything. So, like, that gave, I still have him as a top 20 guy, but it's interesting. He's one of the more interesting guys to me, us versus what we saw in the field. Like, it's like Kylie McDaniel had him as like a top 120 prospect, and him as a top 10 in Cleveland system. I'm like, I don't understand.
The tools are there, so to be excited.
I get the tools, but
it's just hard.
It's an uphill battle.
Yeah, and like I said, we value approach quite a bit, and I think the approach is what the scary part is. All right, we will have more debates on this in the future. We'll come together and have a consensus ranking, and then we'll kind of talk about the consensus ranking and argue for our guys next week. Tomorrow, be back with the roster projection show. We'll talk about how the roster has changed since last time. We'll update you on all the happenings from Guardians Camp, Rangers, and Guardians on Wednesday. So make sure you're tuned in and hit the Everydayer Club up as well for more conversation about Guardians baseball. Use promo code SPRING.
Thank you all for joining us, and go, go,